Wow, that's good news. Wow, that's good news. It feels like good news is all around me. Today's big idea is Jesus is good news. How to do, my Kids Club crew? I'm T, and today is all about good news. What is this for? You gave me this because today I said it's all about good news? And I can't tell the news without a fancy tie and a microphone? Oh, I get it. No, I'm not talking about that kind of news. I probably should be more specific. The news we're talking about is Jesus. Jesus is good news. Now, some of you may be hearing this name for the first time, and some of you may be hearing the name of Jesus for the 100th time. Either way, let's watch a quick video about who Jesus is.
This is Jesus. Jesus is God's son. Now, this might be crazy to think about, but Jesus was both totally God and totally human. He was born in a town called Bethlehem, in Israel. Before most people knew he was God's son, Jesus had a job. He was a carpenter. When he turned 30, Jesus started teaching people about God and how to follow him. He also did miracles, like when he turned water into wine, or brought dead people back to life, or healed people from horrible diseases. Now, not everybody liked what Jesus was doing and what he was saying about God. In fact, some were so mad about what Jesus was doing that they wanted to kill him. And that's exactly what they did. They arrested and beat Jesus. They put him on trial, and then they killed him. But here's the amazing part. Jesus didn't stay dead. After 3 days of being in a tomb, Jesus came back to life. He beat death. When Jesus died on that cross and came back to life, he did something we could never do for ourselves. He took the punishment for all the sin that had ever happened and ever would happen. Jesus took the punishment for our sin and proved that he was who he said he was, God's son. So now, when we decide to follow Jesus and be like him, God forgives us because he sees us like his son, Jesus, perfect and loved and part of his family.
Yep, that's Jesus, the Son of God, the only perfect person to ever live, the rescuer of the entire world, the best teacher, really just the absolute best. So now that you're all caught up on who Jesus is, hopefully you know why Jesus is good news. Not that kind of news. Jesus is good news because his arrival meant that our rescuer was finally here. Did you know that Jesus came to earth as a little baby? Just like you and me. Some people knew that he was special from the moment he arrived. A few guys, we'll call them the Magi, were some of the people who were really excited to see Jesus after he was born. Let's check out their story.
This is a story about the Magi. These men might have been like magicians or sorcerers or rulers like kings, or maybe they were like scientists who studied the stars and the planets. The Bible doesn't say, so we don't really know what their jobs were. The Bible does say they were wise, which means they were really, really smart, and that they came from the east, which meant they came from basically anywhere east of a town called Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. Wherever they came from, the Magi had traveled far, like super far. They probably rode a camel or donkeys, or they walked. They followed something in the sky that filled them with wonder, a bright star in the east. When they got to Jerusalem, they paid a visit to the king, a man named Herod. The Magi said,
"Where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? For we saw a star in the east, and we have come to worship him."
This bothered King Herod because, well, King Herod was easily bothered. King Herod gathered all the chief priests and scribes and asked them if they had heard of some other king who had been born nearby, a king who might try to take the throne from King Herod. What he discovered was an ancient prophecy.
Out of Bethlehem shall come a ruler who will shepherd God's people, Israel.
King Herod summoned the Magi and asked exactly when the star they were following had appeared in the sky. They told him. Then King Herod said,
"Go and search carefully for the child. When you have found him, report to me, so that I too may come and worship him."
This made sense to the Magi, who left immediately to start the search. They looked to the star for guidance, and sure enough, the star went before them and showed them the place where the child was. The Magi were overjoyed and raced to see him. Imagine these three wise men, maybe rich and powerful men, falling to the ground and worshiping a child. Then they took out their treasures and presented them as gifts: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. These were really, really thoughtful gifts. The Magi probably picked them because they knew who Jesus was. Jesus is God's Son. This is frankincense, a precious perfume which was used in worship. Jesus is the King, so they gave him gold, which is, gold, the most valuable metal on earth. And myrrh, well, it's a precious oil, but it was usually used when someone had died. Did the Magi know Jesus would grow up to give his own life to show God's love for the world? We don't know. What we do know is the Magi worshiped Jesus and gave him precious gifts. And that night, God warned them not to go back to King Herod. So the Magi went back to their own country by another way. This enraged King Herod, who kept trying to find and kill the baby who had been born to rescue the whole world. And to keep their baby safe, Mary and Joseph escaped to Egypt. There they stayed until King Herod died a few years later, and it was safe to return. The Magi had more than wisdom and precious gifts. They had determination and wonder and kindness. And they wouldn't be the last people to hear about Jesus and risk everything to worship him as their king. And I can't wait for you to hear that story.
Whew! Good thing the Magi didn't tell the king where Jesus was. The Magi knew that Jesus was special, and they worshiped him when they saw him. They also shared the good news of Jesus being born with others. How would you share the good news about Jesus to others? How about this? Let's take a quick break, but during the break, tell one person the good news about Jesus in 30 seconds or less. Do you think you can do it? I bet you can. I wonder what this could be. Jesus is behind you. Really? Oh, I get it. Because the word Jesus is behind me. That's a good one. Now, did you know wherever we go, Jesus' love will always be there to guide us and to help us. And that is a part of the good news. Earlier, we watched a video about the Magi. They were really smart guys from the East who visited Jesus, worshiped him, and then shared the good news with others. I've got another video about them, and I think we should check it out. We're gonna check it out. Let's check it out.
God's story, the Magi. Part of God's story is about the Magi, and it goes like this. In a land far from Jerusalem, there were men who studied all sorts of things, and one night they saw something special. Something very special. Something very, very special. What was this very special thing they saw? It was a star. When they found this star, they would find a child named Jesus. So they traveled very far. Very, very far. Very, very, very far. Until they came to Jerusalem, where they met with King Herod. They asked him where they could find the new king, because they wanted to give him gifts and worship him. King Herod said he wanted to worship the new king too, So once they found the child, they should come back and tell Herod where to find him. But Herod didn't mean it. He was jealous and didn't want anybody else to be king except him. The Magi kept following the star all the way to Bethlehem. They found Jesus and his parents, Mary and Joseph. And once they found Jesus, the Magi gave him gifts: frankincense, gold, and myrrh. They had found the king God had promised, Jesus. And that's a part of God's story. Oh, and Herod, God told the Magi through a dream that they should not go back to Herod. So they went home a different way.
Since it's Christmas time, I want to end the episode with a fun Christmas song, and no one knows fun like my friend May. So let's catch up with May for the Christmas song of the day. And remember, Jesus is good news.